بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله وسلم عليه وعلى من اتبعه بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I'd like to welcome you all to a special session. We will not be doing the explanation of the hadith today. As I mentioned 2 days ago, that today will be a special session on dua, supplication. This is because we need it all the time in our lives, but more so in this month, blessed month of Ramadan, because people turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a lot more than they do outside of this month. And it's important for us to understand this dua. It's not as just simple as, asking Allah for help. There's a lot of things around it. And the more we know, the more we can do it correctly, and the more we can understand it, and the more we can understand what happens or what doesn't happen when we make dua. That's the idea behind a lot of things that we are covering today, inshallah, okay? So, first off, let's start with why should we supplicate? That's very simple, because we all have needs. We have continuous needs, and the only one who can give us our needs truly is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the way to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is through dua. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us things all the time. Every day of our lives, we've got thousands and thousands of blessings without us even asking for that particular thing. Allah is giving us. But sometimes we have other things that are like preoccupying our mind, and so we want to ask Allah for those. So that's why we should ask Allah through dua. Now compare dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala versus asking humans for help and assistance. Now think about this. With humans, what happens? You ask a person, brother, sister, can you help me with this? They'll do it. Then next time you say it to the same person, brother, sister, I need you again for this other thing. They'll do it again. Maybe a third, fourth time they'll do it, but then they'll start to feel a bit of frustration inside themselves, especially if what you're asking is very close together, your requests. Then the more you do it, even a close friend, close family member will start to get very frustrated inside, and you might hear things like, what is this? You're always asking, do it yourself, get it yourself, why are you asking me? Ask somebody else. All sorts of frustrations you'll see from people. Now that's humans, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us exact opposite. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to ask Him. He wants us to make dua to Him, because that shows that we know that we cannot get it from any other source except through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So unfortunately what we do is we leave Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who's telling us to ask Him and who's the only one who can give us what we want. We leave Him quite often, and we go to humans asking and looking for help from them. It's very strange behavior that we engage in, unfortunately. Now what should we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for? Well, for everything basically. Simply because, as I said earlier, we have lots of needs, and even if it's a worldly need, the one who's truly going to give it to you is Allah. Other people are only like an intermediary in terms of, like, let's say if you need someone to help you carry a very heavy table. Allah is the one who has to agree to it, and for that to happen, then somebody else who you ask will come and help you move that table. But if Allah doesn't want that, then somebody else will say no, or they'll try to lift it. Both of you will not be able to lift it. Table might break. All sorts of things could happen. So that's why we should ask Allah for anything and everything, not just religious things, but worldly matters as well. Ask. Because Allah told us to ask Him, and He'll get angry at us if we don't ask Him, because then it will show that we're arrogant or something. So we need to be asking Allah for everything. There's nothing too small, like don't be embarrassed. There's nothing too big that Allah can't do. There is no sense. Huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. Allah is able to do anything and everything. So ask. Now, let's start with what happens when we make a dua, okay? This is the key thing that people tend to want to know, which is what are the possibilities when you make a dua? Now, at a simple level, it's either rejected or it's accepted. Now, we all know that. But there's something that we don't know, which is the next step. Like when the dua gets accepted, what does that actually mean? Because quite often we're not seeing what we're asking for. So accepted means it's got a broader definition than what you and I might think. So accepted has three things associated with it. Firstly, you get exactly what you ask for. So, oh Allah, give me this job, for example. Okay, oh Allah, make me pass this exam. So you get what you asked for. Now, it could happen at that time, like if you say, oh Allah, give me this job, you might get it then or you might get it a month later. But the first one, if it's accepted, is that you'll get what you asked for. The second is a calamity is averted, either fully or partially. What this means is, you make dua with a certain level of sincerity, and you make dua with a certain level of frequency. Okay? So depending on your sincerity, depending on your frequency, your du'as have a bit of strength. So now, at the opposite end, you've got some calamities that are decreed for you. So then the strength of these du'as will either partially or fully cancel out some or more of those calamities that were decreed for you. So as an example, let's say you've gone through an accident and it was a minor car accident. So perhaps that was meant to be a huge accident. You were supposed to be hospitalized, for example, for 3 weeks. But you've been making lots of other du'as, sincere du'as to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, frequent and sincere from your heart, such that this calamity has gone from something where you'd be hospitalized for 3 weeks to just a minor, dent in the car, and so on. Likewise, it could be a sickness, it could be something else. So calamities are either averted, either fully or partially. And the third possibility when the dua is accepted is that its reward is saved for you and I on the Day of Judgment. Now, looking at these three, which one is the best for us? Now, all of us will clearly say it's C. C is best. But unfortunately, human nature is such that we want A. We want what we just asked for and we want it now. That's just, unfortunately, a lot of people's natures. But note that that is actually the least of the three good things that can happen if your dua is accepted. Okay, so all three are absolutely great things. This is when they are accepted. So now, let's look, remember in part A, accepted, I said sometimes you might get a dua later on. So what are some wisdom behind a delayed response to a dua? So firstly, we do not have a right over Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Remember that. So you can't demand, I can't demand, none of us can demand, oh Allah, give it to me right now. It's my right. We have no right over Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, we're His slaves, He created us, He's providing everything for us, every single second and so on. So we have no right. So remember that to start off with. Then secondly, delayed response is a trial sometimes. Allah is seeing, do you give up? Allah is seeing, do you still believe in Him? Because if someone made a dua to, or like even a false God, and something happened there and then they'll start believing more and more in that false God, unfortunately. But a delayed response will test whether you really believe that Allah is listening or not, He's seeing or not, He's knowing or not, He's able or not, He's all-powerful or not. So it's testing us. And know that Allah is all-knowing and all-wise. So He knows what we're saying, what we're not saying, what we actually want, what we may have accidentally said, and wisdom. So He knows. Wisdom means doing things in the right place and right time and to the right people and so on. So Allah knows who to give, what to give, when to give. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's choice is better than our choice. Always remember this. Now I mentioned a couple of days ago, Yusuf alayhi salam. Remember, he wanted to get out of jail when he was wrongfully imprisoned. But had he got out immediately the way he wanted initially, he would have come out into slavery. But Allah, through His knowledge, through His wisdom, and He knows what's best for us, He knew that what's best for Yusuf alayhi salam is to stay a little longer, then come out in such a way that he'd be honored and he would hold immediate, not go back into slavery, but everything forgotten, he'd become a very powerful person in that city. Truly amazing. So Allah's choice is better than our own choices. Remember that. And what we ask for might not be good for us. Because look, what is our knowledge? So deficient, like it's laughable. And our farsightedness is laughable. Our wisdom, we're making mistakes all the time, and so on, right? So what we ask, we think is good for us, but it may or may not be. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides what He wants. Okay. Excellence of making dua. Dua is the essence of worship. Now, have you ever thought about, like, when you're praying, okay, like in Melbourne just now, the time is just after Isha, most people have finished their Taraweeh, okay? So when you prayed Isha and then when you prayed Taraweeh, there was an inner, like, unspoken dua in there, which was, oh Allah, accept this act of worship from me. You probably didn't say, oh Allah, accept my Isha prayer. Oh Allah, accept my Taraweeh prayer. You probably didn't say that, but it's there that, oh Allah, accept. So that's the essence of all acts of worship. It has a dua in it, unspoken dua in it, that, oh Allah, accept this from me. And Allah is close to the person making dua. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is close to the one making dua. He listens, He answers, He takes care of the person. And by the way, because of this very short session, I did not put any proofs in all of these have proofs from the Quran and Sunnah, and this could go on for a long time, except for the sake of brevity, just to give people what they need in this month of Ramadan. I'm making things much faster. Also, dua is a sign of humility, because when you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's a clear indication that you're saying, I don't have the ability, only Allah has the ability. That's why you're asking Him. That's humbleness, and that's what's desired and required all the time from us. In fact, not desired, but required from us all the time. We must be humble, because we can't do anything ourselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do everything. So it shows that you are humble. And dua makes you optimistic and gives hope. Okay, I can rely on Allah, I have someone to rely on Him. Okay, He will answer me today, He'll answer me tomorrow. It makes you optimistic and gives you hope. And one of the easiest acts of worship, it's like dhikr. Dhikr, dua are so easy. You don't even actually have to move your lips in dua. You can be making dua like inside yourself. And you can move your lips to make dua. It's so easy. You could be extremely sick and really weak. You haven't been able to eat for a couple of days, for example. And still, you can do dua. So it's a very easy act of worship. And some more. Dua is a sign of faith, because it shows you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Non-Muslims don't make dua to Allah. Why would they? They don't believe in Allah. But we believe in Allah, and so turning to Him shows that we have Iman. And dua repels Allah's anger. Now, as I mentioned earlier, humans get angry when you ask, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to ask Him, wants us to beg from Him, then He will give it to us, because everything is in His hands. Everything is under His control. He has power over everything. So He will get angry at us if we don't ask Him. SubhanAllah. So are we not the ones losing out? Like, He wants us to ask. He likes it from us. He will get angry if we don't ask, and yet we don't ask too much. We ask sparingly for some reason. And dua is a sign of wisdom. It shows wisdom from us, partial wisdom, that we know who to turn to. We're leaving human beings and we're turning to the only one who controls everything, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it shows that we got some wisdom. And dua is loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As I mentioned, it's an act of worship, it's a great act of worship, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves it from us. Now, some preconditions of dua. Realize that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds to dua. Okay, He is the one who's in control. He's the only one who's listening. Even when you don't even, when you whisper, the person next to you might not listen, might not hear, but Allah knows it. Even if the dua is in your heart only, your lips haven't even moved, even a whisper, Allah is the only one who's listening, and He is the one who's going to have that inside yourself. Be sincere to Allah. Sincere to Allah. So ask Allah, don't ask anybody else. Now you can ask other people for help in terms of like, brother or sister, can you help me move this table? Can you help me with this homework or that sort of stuff? Or my phone is having trouble, can you help me fix it? That's just the normal worldly help. But you should realize that throughout all this, the one who's truly going to be fixing it is Allah. That other person who might be helping you out is just a person who Allah is giving you the help through. Remember that. And similarly, if you're able to help someone else, don't get arrogant. Remember that it's Allah's help for the other person, but it came through you. So thank Allah for it. Rather than being arrogant, thank Allah for it. And we need to have an attentive heart. I've seen so many people where they, for example, make a dua, they've got their hands up, making dua, turning to Allah, towards the Qibla, for example, but like they're looking here, looking left, looking right, fidgeting, fiddling here and there. That's not an attentive heart. Now imagine this, if someone said to you, okay, they call out to you, and while they're asking you for something, they're actually busy with something else. You tell them, hang on, can you turn around and speak to me directly, clearly, so I know what you're saying? Do you really want my help or not? And it doesn't look like it. You look like you're busy. Come back to me later. So that's what we're talking about. We have an attentive heart to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ask for good things. Don't ask for haram things. Like, you're into music or you're into films or something like that, and you say, oh Allah, this thing got deleted from YouTube, this song, oh Allah, make that song come back or get it re-uploaded or something like that. That sort of thing is not allowed. And halal sustenance, so make sure everything to do with you is halal, and I'll touch upon this later on, inshallah. And have hope. It goes with optimism. Have hope that Allah is going to answer. And remember, we talked about this earlier, dua is either rejected or accepted. Now when it's accepted, all three possibilities are great possibilities, amazing possibilities. Now, let's talk about some etiquettes. Etiquettes of making dua. And these are all very important. We need to pay attention. Well, actually, all of these things are important. But even these ones, we need to pay attention and do as many as we can. So start with the praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and send the salah and the salam on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Raise your hands. Raise your hands. It shows that you're more in need of what you're asking, and you're showing that I can't do anything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do everything. Raise your hands. In fact, in this, there's like, as I mentioned, there's hadith and verses to do with everything. But with this raising of the hands, there's a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is shy, such that if a person raises his or her hand to him, that Allah should let the hand go back down without him giving anything. So subhanAllah, it's truly amazing. We should raise our hands as much as we can. Face the Qibla, be in a state of wudu. Okay, now that we should try all the time, but also even while you're making dua. Acknowledge one's sins. It shows humility. It shows, because like humans err. No one likes someone who's arrogant. You've done something wrong but not admitting it. No one likes that. Same here. Okay, so acknowledge. We're sinners, we're all sinners, everyone's a sinner. So acknowledge, but not to other people. We don't do like other religions where we have confession here and there, we confess to other people. No, we only confess to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The smallest of the sins and the biggest of the sins, only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So acknowledge one's sins and use related names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So like, Ya Ghafur ighfirli, so we talk about forgiveness. Ya Rahman Rahim irhamni. Okay, Ya Wahhab habli, so like the one who gives, give me, for example. Ya Razzaq urzuqni, so the one who gives sustenance and provisions, provide me provisions, and so on. So each of Allah's names can be used in this way, and that's the way we should, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, to Him belongs the most beautiful names. فَدْعُوهُ بِهَا, make dua using those names. Some more etiquettes. try to use the du'as from the Quran and Sunnah, because they're going to be flawless from the Quran and Sunnah. We might ask dua that may not be the best. It might not be good to ask for that, or it might not be properly worded. But du'as from Quran and authentic Sunnah, they're the right thing to ask for, and they are 100% properly worded the way it should be. And make dua at the times of expected response, and we'll touch upon that very soon inshaAllah. And have the correct state of mind. Again, no arrogance, and your attentive heart, you're concentrating, you know what you're saying. That's why if you just memorize, for example, some du'as that might have come in Sunnah, but you understand nothing of it, that may not be so good for you. As compared with, even if you don't know any of those, make dua in your own language, but something that you actually understand. So have that correct state of mind. And be certain of du'a's acceptance. We have to be certain that, because like Allah can easily give to us. For Allah to give us everything that each one of us asked, times 10, doesn't reduce anything from His dominion. So He can easily give it. So be sure of that. Allah said He will respond. Be sure of that. Be quiet in your dua, don't make noises, don't make it loudly, because you're not calling upon someone who's deaf or who's far. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is listening to all of us, even though He's above His throne, He's listening and knows everything. And try to repeat the dua 3 times. Now all of these, the more we do, the better. These are all from the authentic texts for us to be doing. Some discourage acts when making dua. So not expecting a response, that's not good. Because then that means you've got a doubt, can Allah do it or not? You've got a doubt, will Allah answer me or not? So on. So there's lots of like negative things associated with this. So never think that it's not going to happen. Keep making the dua, but every time you got to be sure that that's it. This time it's going to get, inshallah it's going to get, inshallah it's going to. So make sure you're doing things the right way, and then inshallah it will be accepted. And then not being certain, that's this one as well. Not expecting response, not being certain. They're very similar, but we need to be expecting response and be certain of it. And dua against family and kids and so on. Don't make dua against them. Make dua for them. Typically, as I've mentioned in that famous talk of the story of Jurayj, okay, Jurayj's mother made a dua against him and it got accepted. But anyhow, we're not supposed to make dua against our family and our kids. However bad they might be, okay, make dua for them. Oh Allah, fix them, amend their ways, bring them back to right guidance, give them knowledge, help them to implement, and so on and so on. Not against them. And do not limit Allah's mercy. So, oh Allah, forgive me and don't forgive others. Oh, I'm the most important person, I need to get to Jannah, just forgive me. No, Allah's mercy is infinite. Okay, Allah can forgive every single person and jinn. The biggest sinners as well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can forgive. So don't limit Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. And don't experiment regarding dua. Now this experimentation is an interesting thing. Look, a lot of us actually falling into this, which is why we don't see the desired result. Long time ago, there was a pious person. Now it's not in the topic of dua, it's in the topic of charity, but it's the same experimentation related. So what happened is a pious person was telling someone that, look, the Prophet ﷺ, he said that, when you give charity, it will not reduce your wealth. So he said, yeah, that's the way it is, and it doesn't reduce the wealth. The scholar was saying this. So then one of his students heard that and he decided, okay, I'm going to try this out. So then he tried it, gave charity, and then it started to reduce his wealth. So he came back to the scholar after a while and he said, oh Shaykh, you told me this, that it doesn't reduce the wealth, but I tried it and it's reducing my wealth. So the scholar said to him, basically, he said, you were experimenting. Don't experiment, because experiment means you're not sure whether Allah, what He said is true or not, what the Prophet ﷺ said is true or not. You're not sure, but we need to be sure. Don't experiment. Have yaqeen. And to say that you will not ask for anything else, don't, like some people say, oh Allah, I'll only ask you this, I'll never ask you anything after this again, this is the main thing, give me this, cure me from cancer, or etc, etc. No, why? We need Allah all the time. And Allah can keep giving and giving and giving. And He's actually giving it to us thousands of blessings a day. Thousands a day. Actually, it's probably more than thousands a day. Okay? As a small amount, I'm just limiting it to thousands. Now, some of the recommended times for making dua, last 1/3 of the night. And this month is especially a good opportunity because everyone gets up in the last 1/3 of the night to eat the suhoor meal, which we should be for barakah and to follow the sunnah. So that's a good time to make dua. Now, the way to calculate the 1/3 is from Maghrib time till the next day, Fajr time. Divide that into 3. And the last 1/3 is your 1/3 of the night. Similarly, the Isha, how it should be ideally prayed before the middle of the night, that's not 12 a.m. midnight, no. The middle of the night Islamically is from Maghrib till the Fajr next day, half. So sometimes, like as an example in Melbourne, sometimes I think it goes down to even 11:30, 11:20 p.m. Sometimes it goes 12:30, 12:40, 12:50 a.m. So you have to work this out, okay? Another recommended time is the last hour of Friday before sunset. Now, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned a number of hadiths regarding this, that there is an hour, which means a period of time on Friday when anything someone asks will get accepted. A lot of the scholars believe that this is like the last period of time. Hour doesn't mean 60 minutes, but a period of time before sunset. So a lot of the pious people of the past, they would pray Asr, and that's it, just turn around and make dua to Allah all the way till sunset, all the way till Maghrib. Third one, dua between adhan and iqamah. Now these days it's a bit difficult, we're not going to masjid and stuff, but at least you have the opportunity in the house. In the house someone can make and should be doing adhan, and then you do iqamah and pray together in a congregation. So the dua between adhan and iqamah is also, inshallah, more likely to get accepted. Dua in the sajda position, the reason being because you're most humble in that position. The most humble. And remember, humility is a very important characteristic. Okay? So in your most humble position, you put your most noble part of your body, the face, the forehead, onto the ground for the sake of Allah. So then asking at that time is very good. And in the last part of the prayer, which is like after your tashahhud and the durood and everything, after that, before the salam, ask whatever you want. So there's some prescribed du'as. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, then after that, let a person choose whatever he or she likes. So memorize some du'as and ask in that last part of the prayer. And another one is dua in Laylatul Qadr, which will be coming in the last 10 nights of Ramadan, most likely the odd nights of Ramadan. It's an amazing night, so you don't want to miss it. So now these are recommended in the sense that they've got that extra virtue attached with it. But that doesn't mean like right now it doesn't fit any one of these. But still, if you can, do it. The more, the better. And certain conditions and situations when dua is likely to be answered is like when a person is wrong, when you are the mazloom. Okay, when you've been wronged, if you make a dua, it's likely more chances to get answered. And when you're in difficult and dire and severe circumstances, that's another one. And when you are a traveler, that's another one. And when you make dua for a person who is absent. In fact, in some of the pious people of the past, if they needed something, as an example, let's say they needed a job, for example. If they knew somebody else who needed a job, they would make dua for that person in their absence, because then the angel would say, Ameen, and to you the same. So they would do that as well, subhanAllah. And some of the factors that prevent dua, these are important, because this is where it'll land you in the red category, where you're making dua, it's not getting answered. So it's sins upon sins upon sins, that's not going to help you. Being hasty, what that being hasty means, Prophet ﷺ explained it, is like you make dua, and then you make dua, and then you make dua, and then you think, okay, that's it, it's not getting accepted, so you stop. That's being hasty, that's not allowed. Asking for something prohibited, as I touched upon earlier, and haram sustenance is a big killer of the dua getting answered. So you don't want to have anything to do with haram sustenance. So make sure your earnings are halal, nothing to do with interest and things like that. And your your food is halal, your drink is halal, your clothing is halal. Everything to do with you is halal. That's very important. This is a huge killer of dua. If we had time, I would have gone into proof of that. It's quite amazing, actually. And some innovations in dua, I need to quickly finish off. Habitually using specific duas not found in the Quran and Sunnah. So Quran and Sunnah have lots of du'as, and especially the Sunnah has them at certain times and circumstances and places. But if you're coming up with your own, that you're attaching it to circumstances and places and such, that could be a problem. So do not do that. Kissing the thumbs and rubbing the eyes, that some people do. Dua in a group. Dua in a group, in like the Friday khutbah when the imam does it, or certain prayers, like let's say even the witr prayer, things like that sort of thing is fine. But a dua in a group that people typically do after the congregational prayer, when the imam turns around and does the congregational dua, that is not part of the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And just to think about it, the Prophet ﷺ prayed thousands and thousands and thousands of prayer after the migration from Mecca to Medina. As an example, I think about 18,000 prayers. And not once out of those 18,000 prayers did he ever do a congregational dua after the fard prayer. So that means we should not be trying to do that. Okay, do your own dua. And remember, we already talked about one of the best times was just before the salam of the prayer. So don't miss that out and wait for the dua at the end of the prayer, like in a group. No, do it before the salam. Okay? All right. Jazakumullah khair. That's all I have. As you can see, I did.